Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to talk about cheap, inexpensive USB game controllers or game pads, and in particular I'm going to be using this one as some sort of a reference guide. I needed a USB controller just so I could play some retro games on my laptop. I tried pairing things like Bluetooth controllers, Xbox controllers, etc., and they work on and off. But I just wanted something that was a little less faff. I just wanted something I could plug in and it would work. And I don't do that much gaming on my laptop, but it was handy just to have a games pad. And I picked up this one. So this is obviously, it looks like a Super Nintendo controller with all the regular buttons that you get on a Super Nintendo controller. And obviously it's a fake. It is just a cheap knockoff. I paid $3.99 for this new, and it arrived this morning. I only ordered it yesterday, and well, what do I think of it? Well, first of all, this particular controller, it just feels very $3.99-ish. It's the D-pad is extremely clunky. The actual action buttons, they seem okay. They have a nice feel to them. These two buttons in here, well, you don't use them very often, so it's not that important. The shoulder buttons, they seem absolutely fine, but it is the D-pad that it just feels like it's got more travel on one side than the other. I have used it. I quickly played a bit of Super Bomberman on my laptop using the SNES 9X emulator. I can say, plugging it into my laptop, it detected it straight away. I just plugged it in. I'm running Linux, so I can confirm that it also works on Linux. I just plugged it in, ran the terminal, did an LS USB, and yes, I could see that the controller was sitting there. I plugged it in and tried to play it with SNES 9X. Didn't work straight off. I just had to go in and configure the controller pad, set the buttons up, and it's been fine since. So it works. It works in Linux, so therefore I'm assuming it's going to work in everything else. But what do I think of it? Well, for $3.99 and for a bit of occasional retro gaming, it's all right. If we compare it, I've got a proper official Super Nintendo controller here. So this is a proper one that plugs into a SNES. And you can feel, well, the build quality just seems fantastic. It's got, the SNES one has got a bit more weight to it. If we compare the buttons themselves, if I can, the Super Nintendo ones have got a better feel to them. And bearing in mind this controller is probably 20, 30 years old. It just still feels like it's got excellent play in it. The buttons click a lot nicer. You can hear that that's a real hard click, whereas these are softer. You really feel that you could hammer that button and it would respond, but this one just seems like you could probably do that one a lot quicker, whereas this one is a lot more effort. And if we turn our attention to the D-pads, so this one, like I said, is an original SNES pad, so it's probably about 30 years old. That D-pad is still absolutely superb. You're not going to have any trouble with that at all. Nintendo know how to make a fantastic D-pad that is going to last. And you can hear that. It's got a little bit of travel, all even, but on this it just seems a little more. If you can, I don't know if you can hear that on camera or see that, but every button, every direction, it seems to have, these two have more of a clunk to them than these sides. It seems a bit softer. I'm not complaining. You get what you pay for. If I was a big gamer and I was really after something that was going to last and is going to be used all the time, then I would have gone for something a bit more expensive. I quite liked the design of it. It gives it that, well, Super Nintendo feel, and the majority of the games that I'm going to be playing on my laptop will be Super Nintendo ROMs. Some of the reason is because I've got a Super Nintendo with a huge bunch of games, and to capture game footage it's easier to do it via emulation, so no problems there. I own the game, so I can download the ROM and play it that way, then use a screen capture to capture it, and it would be quite nice, I thought, to play it on something that represented a Super Nintendo controller. You can get all sorts. You can get NES, Master System, Mega Drive, PlayStation, all sort of knockoff versions that look the same but with a USB plug on it. And yeah, it depends on what you're going to be using it for, or how often you're going to be using it. Because obviously, I don't assume this is going to last very long, or it's going to give the most amazing gaming experience. I mean, I played Super Bomberman with this controller, and I just felt like I missed every so often because the D-pad just didn't quite fire when it needed to. But that might just be me, as I'm not massively great at games. And it's something you never get from an official controller. A 30-year-old controller, and I was playing Super Mario World on my physical SNES, and it just buttons never missed a beat. These are fantastic controllers, even now. Make of that what you will. This is a cheap knockoff, generic USB game controller in the style of a Super Nintendo, but without obviously it's not official. It's not got that superb build quality. I mean, you can just see in general that they've cut corners. This bit here, it's a little recessed on the knockoff one, but on the official SNES one, it's all a lot higher quality. That is general feel of the difference between these two. This is an official controller with absolutely superb build quality and button squishiness. It's just got that right amount, whereas this one, it's cheap components put in a cheap shell, but it will serve its purpose. And if I was to ever really think, well, I'm getting into gaming a little bit more on my laptop, then I'd probably go out and buy a more expensive one, or even possibly some sort of USB converter so I could plug an official controller in. But there you go. You do get what you pay for, and if this suits my needs for $3.99, that is a good job done. There are a lot, like I said, of generic controllers out there, and I think you will find the same with most of them. They're going to be poorer build quality, sort of creakier plastic. I mean, you don't get that on a SNES controller. That is a rock solid build. But looking around the controller, if I can try and get these the same way, they do look like they've come out of the same sort of mould. I mean, this one here has got all the Nintendo gubbins written on it in that sort of recessed section, but you don't get that on here, but you do get the recessed section, and even the screw holes are in the same place. So this has come from some kind of image of this, but they've just, well, used it cheaply. I mean, even down to the placement of the lettering. So you've got, this is the cheap one, X, Y, A and B. They're slightly different on an official controller. They just look a lot nicer. And the start and select buttons are printed on an official SNES controller, but they're kind of embossed on here. And even at the top there, well, actually I don't know, because that says Super Nintendo and it's printed on But that looks like it's just got a spot where you could stick a Nintendo logo in. But there we go. Cheap controller. Actually, it does its job, and it suits my purpose fine, and it may suit yours. $3.99, arrived next day, plugged in, did exactly what it should do, but the build quality just isn't fantastic. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.